a quick answer, and then I would like to really share with you what we can do in the long term. I really am hoping that after this, after your school holiday is over, to resume youth worship, right? But maybe we will take this on board, is to really learn how to defend your faith. Because that's where your question is coming from, you see. One is, how do I guard my mind? How do we guard our minds from the world? Good. Now, how do we do that? Right? Quick answer is read. Fill your mind. Get to know the world you live in. You cannot live in ignorance. That's the worst thing you want to do. And here, how do we introduce the Creator God to someone believing in science without a Christian background? Right? How do we explain creation and evolution theory? Can they coexist? These are very good questions to raise up. Okay, so these are the things. We're not going to cover everything today, but what you are asking is, how do we really defend our faith? If someone were to ask me about my faith, what do I say? If we say we don't know, shame on you. Really? Now, wait a minute, you're a Christian and you don't know what you believe in? Why you believe in what you don't know? Now, okay, that's not a good part. How do we be better? Now, this is just downstairs. The bookshelf downstairs. Look, I bought all these books in the past for previous people who have asked, and some of them have read about these books, and they are useful. Okay, what does this help us? It really helps us that there are different what we call worldviews out there. Whether you use this as a term or you don't, it exists. We all got different worldviews, okay? For example, for us, our worldview is what we call a biblical Christian worldview. Okay, so ours is biblical. We want to put biblical because Bible. Not all Christian, unfortunately, you imagine Christian means believe Bible. Today, you can't even say that. Not all Christians read the Bible, believe in the Bible. Right? And these are the problems that are really out there. So when your friends say, I'm a Christian too, I go to church, it does not mean automatically they believe in the Bible or even read it. So our worldview really comes from the scriptures. It comes from our faith in God as creator, and so that's our worldview, right? Now you got to know that there are other worldviews out there. Okay? Christianity is just one part. This is called, okay, this is the worldview. You believe in a deity, believe in God. But there are other religions out there. Okay? So we believe in God, but there are other religions who also believe in God. So there is what we call monotheistic God, meaning we believe in one God. Right? And then there are those who believe that there are many gods. The Chinese religion, many gods. Grace, you're familiar with these many? You grew up here, so already no more. But if you grew up in Malaysia, Singapore, many gods. I remember my grandmother, no more because she became a Christian now, but she used to have many gods. There's one in the kitchen, there's one outside, there's all over the place. Now if you go to Singapore, you see temples, India, many gods. Bali is called the island of many gods. If you've ever been to Bali, they worship everything, anything. The rock, the tree, the ground, you got to be careful where you walk because they're worshipping. They burn little things, flowers, everywhere. So there are those who believe many gods. So don't just in case, you don't want to offend the tree or rock or anything. So there we go, many gods. Right? Now, there are those who don't believe. So they're in major two worldviews. But in the two, you got to break it down. So there are those who believe in God, right? Mono, this would include one, Judaism, two, Islam, three, Christianity. Right? So these are the major. Within them, there are all the other, the Roman Catholic, there are all the denominations, right? So just to give you a general view. Okay? And there are many, they also have many, the Hinduism, Buddhism, and all the rest. Right? The Greeks believed many gods too. Romans just assimilated whatever the Greeks believed in and made it their own. That was just their culture. Right? So that's the general part. Now there are those who they call themselves atheists. Now atheists literally mean atheists is that they believe that there is no God. Atheist. The word is theist. Theist is the belief of God. This is where you get the word theology, the study of God. Right? So atheist, alpha primitive infant means opposite, or don't believe in God. Now, there are those who say there is no God. Right? The famous one is called by this person called Charles Darwin. And he's the one who came up with the Darwinism evolution theory. Okay, so no God. Then where do we all begin? This is the origin of life kind of a thing. And that's where it began. The big influence to the world because you all studied it in school. Right? It wasn't him. It was by the man called Huxley, which is known as Darwin's bulldog in the past. Because he's the one who fiercely promoted Darwinism. Not Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is just a scientist. He's go, study botany, study life, and he was not the one preaching Darwinism. It was Huxley, Thomas Huxley. He was the one who made it really prominent in the 18th century. So, now, a group that is there. So this is your atheist group. Now, there's another group called, they are not atheists, but they are what is called agnostic. Now, agnostic is, they believe that there is a God, but we don't know who he is, or who she is, or who it is. It could be aliens, it could be some intelligence form somewhere, but just not the Christian God. They reject the Christian God. You cannot say there is one God. So they call themselves agnostic. They don't have the answer. They are not convinced that there is nothing because they look at the world. Not everything can be explained by science. Right? You see can't. Some things you can be explained by science, but some things you just can't explain. There are certain experiences in life that, you can't explain it by science. So there are people that are really agnostic than anything else. Okay? And then maybe there are others. But these, you must know, these are the major worldviews out there. So when you talk to a person, whether they admit it or not, they actually fall under certain worldviews. Okay? So much depends. Well, if you have a person who, Italian, chances are he's Roman Catholic. If you have an Italian friend. So he may have gone to church somewhere, he may have heard about God somewhere, so roughly here, but may not have a whole lot of knowledge. This is where the problem of ignorance comes in. The knowledge they have, it's the same with the Jews. It's more cultural. Family. They grew up with that knowledge. But it's not personal knowledge of God, of faith, of the Lord Jesus Christ. Does that make sense here? Okay? It's not that they're totally ignorant. Their knowledge comes from family, community. That's it. Right? Carols, you grew up a bit, right, in Cameroon. Did you have the culture that is there? It's all part of it, isn't it? right? So whether it's, some of them is a bit mixed too. You have a bit of Christian with a bit of superstition. Right? So there are those who believe in Christian, but they also believe in evil spirits that are there. You got to cast out evil spirit, cast out demons, like Ghostbuster. So it's a bit of superstition mixed with Christianity. And over time, guess what? It's all mixed. So the same thing. The early Christians, they lived in Rome, they lived in Greece, the philosophers of the day, the ideology would come in and influence even the church. Right? So you got to know, today it's really all mixed up. It really is so mixed up. Okay, so if you were to ask, okay, now how do I introduce the Creator God? First is, okay, you say this person is without a Christian background. Okay, maybe have they ever been exposed to the Christian faith? If the person goes to a Christian school, there is some exposure. Some. Right? Now, you must be living under a rock if you say, I have never, ever, ever heard, because every Christmas you have the nativity scene. You can't escape it. Isn't it? You got on TV, Ten Commandments, Easter time. So it's all over our culture anyway. So you can't, even though you don't come from a Christian background, you have some Christian ideas. Isn't it? Now, work with that. Okay? Begin where? Now, how do I explain? You got to know your friend and what worldview it falls under. Does this person say, well, I believe that we evolved from? That's your evolution. The person can share their worldview. What is our challenge? We share our worldview. I don't need to fight you. I don't need to debate. I hear you, but would you like to know my worldview? If the person is saying, well, tell me, then you can go further. But if the person, I'm not interested, no point. There's nothing. Conversation just ended. Isn't it? Right? So when we talk about defending our faith, now this person is a very, very smart person. He's called William Lane Craig. He holds a PhD in philosophy, as well as a number of other things. Now he is a professional debater. He's very, very sharp. Now he has taken upon himself to challenge those who hold the atheistic worldview. Now, when we talk about, he writes books under the section. If you ever go to Quran, there are many, many different categories. There's Christian living, there is, the Bible section, there is the general interest, the kids section. There's one section called apologetics. Now, this falls under apologetics. What is apologetics? It's not, I apologize. I'm sorry I'm a Christian. That's not what it is. It's the word the idea of a study of apology is actually defense. You give a reason for your faith. You defend your faith with reason and precision. Now, how can you do that? Read. Get to really know your faith and to have general understanding of what's out there. Right? Don't just read Christian books. I read other books. I want to know their worldview. Like you just said, how can I explain evolution theory? If you don't know anything about the evolution theory and you're trying to explain the person, no, evolution theory is not good. But you don't even know it. How can you say something is no good if you don't even know it? So you got to look at it. Okay, look at what are the cases they present. What is this all about? That's this worldview. This is the Christian worldview. And you put it side by side. To me, what makes sense? You look at the evolution theory, look at all the holes that are there, look at all the probability that are there. It keeps on changing. Now, the worst thing the church has done is they try to compromise and blend the two together. That's what they have done in recent years. Okay? So, they look at the evolution theory and say the origin of life evolved over millions of years, right? And so, how do I fit that into the Bible? In the beginning, God created. How many days did God take to create everything that we know? How many days? Quick, key it in. 6. I hope you were not thinking 7. Okay. 7 they rested. 6, right? Day 1, day 2. Now, how they try to square with this 6 days God created. Now how do you square that? Where the science says 6 million cannot be 6. Previously it was 6 million. Okay, maybe 6 million because you cannot read the Bible and say this is not. One day is actually 1 million. Now, that's how you can compromise, isn't it? It sounds probable. Maybe God, one day to God is 1 million years, human years. Sounds very probable, but you got a problem. If you read Genesis carefully, God took 1 million years, the first day over, and the sun, the moon. So in 24 hours, it takes 1 million years. You're going to be in trouble. How can that be? Right now, they say, no, cannot be because we can't, it's longer than that. 6 million cannot be. It was actually 600 million. So every day, we read day 1 is actually 10 million years. And you keep on changing the figure. The best thing to do is not try to fit it together. You can't. Is there science? Is there all these things? Yes, there is no problem. The law of gravity, as we study all these things, that's not a problem. But we must understand, science do not explain everything. Obviously. Right? When you begin to use science to try to explain everything, you will have a big problem. Right? How does science explain love? This boy loves this girl. And sometimes you look at the two that gets into a relationship, you think that is scientifically illogical. Because the girl is so tall, the boy is so short. Right? In evolution theory, this cannot work out. Right? You see, sometimes you look at couples and say, wow, how did they end up together? How does it work? They are opposites. Then you say, opposite attract. You can't, science out the feelings they have for each other. You can't calculate the mathematical equation. There are other things out there that science just cannot explain. Science can explain a lot of things. Thank God, because of the development of science, of technology, we advance in medication, and so on and so forth. We know that. My study was in technology. So yes, there is lots of positive things about science, but science frankly can't explain everything. And science certainly cannot explain God. Right? So at best, we look at worldviews. They exist. Okay, and you got to know, okay, now where is this person coming from? That's where it's. I don't know your friend. The best thing to do is not to push anything, but first get to know a person. This is a friend. Surely you know your friend. Right? The background, their understanding, maybe your conversation, maybe begin as a question, but you always be ready. You know where they're coming from. You know about the evolution theory, but you also know very deeply, very convinced about your own faith. That is where it's really going to help. But if you are not even convinced about your own faith, you cannot help anyone. If you're not a strong swimmer, please don't try and rescue somebody drowning. You're going to drown with the person. Right? So this is, look, I'll be very happy after the retreat is over. Maybe this is what can come out of the retreat. Okay? That we will look into having youth worship, and the topic is we learn how to defend our faith. We learn knowledge. We learn these things, that we may be able to, one, be very clear about our faith, and two, if we have the opportunity to share with other people. Right? I think that would be good. Okay? Now, these books are all here. You can pick it up and read. You don't need to buy them. It's just downstairs. You can bring back and read. Now, this, of course, if you're into philosophy. Some people are not into science. They're more into reason. Now, reason with me. It is logic, reason. Now, this William Lane Craig, the books you want to read, and he's very, very good. Like, he will share with you how to help people understand the Lord Jesus Christ using reason. Not from the scriptures, reason, philosophy. Right? So he wrote a book called On Guard, Defending Your Faith with Reason and Precision. And then he wrote another book called Reasonable Faith, Christian Truth and Apologetics. Okay, if you're interested there. Now this is a little bit easier reading. Ken Ham, he is been around for a long, long time. Like this one is evolution theory. What about dinosaurs? This is like a Q&A thing, right? So things like, is there really a God? And he writes about that. Why shouldn't Christians accept millions of years? And he writes a different. Couldn't God have used evolution? Doesn't creation deny the law of nature? Cain's wife, who was she? Things like that. If you're interested, right? So he's got book 1, book 2, book 3. These are like question and answer kind. So you'd be surprised when you look at all the questions that are raised up. There's nothing new under the sun. It's the same questions, right? That people ask. If you want to look at that. Another person is Josh McDowell, and these are tougher questions of life. Okay, so things like that. How can anyone believe the New Testament account of the life of Jesus, seeing it was written long after his death? So they are like a little bit trickier questions, right? Does archaeological evidence prove the Bible? Things like that, right? How do we know God exists? About evil? What about other religions? What about suffering? What about miracles? So this is more answers to a little bit tougher questions. Okay, and this one is more for biblical and culturally relevant approach to talking about God. Now these are all, there are many resources. You can look at it by reading. Okay, I'm not going to come and teach these things. I will teach you the scriptures. That's what youth worship will be, that you will have a clearer understanding. But you might need these books first, at least know what's out there. Okay? Alright, we'll start there. Okay, so I hope that answers your questions. Okay, how do we guard our mind? Know, read. Fill your mind with knowledge. That's the best way. Know what's out there. So the more I read, the more convinced I am of my own faith in the Lord. Okay, and read good books. So I'll be ordering a book for the two girls here. The Father of the Fatherless, about Charles Moody. They said, I want to read his story as well. Be happy to. Anyone else, you let me know. I'll be happy to do a bulk order and give you the book. Right? So there are stories, inspirational lives that could inspire. I read life stories, true stories. And I also read these other books because people ask questions. Okay? All right? Well, I'll leave it there with you, and they're here. I'll bring it back downstairs, so it's not messy. But it's just that you're interested, you can just borrow it here and there. Anything else, just bring it back downstairs. Okay? All right. Well, with no other questions, I will hand this time back to Tamara and Daryl. They'll do some activities with you. I think there's a few things that we can do. Can I, Mara, just explain this? Now, this comes from a lady. It's a friend of Dev, and she does all this knitting. Her husband, I know this lady, and she went through a really, really hard time. Her son was a drug addict, and it's so bad that she was so afraid of him. And it's just half the time you're afraid of your own son because you don't know what he will do to you, right? And he threatens to kill himself. And so she really lived a very, very challenging time. And here's the husband that always gives her a hard time. Well, her husband got cancer, and her husband passed away. In a way, you see, we always think death is bad. In this case, death freed her. And she said, now I'm free. What do? I really, really want to serve God, but I don't know what I can do. And so Dev said to her one day, why don't you knit, right? Learn how to knit, and then we can knit things for people who are cold, those who are in hospital. So she began to do this. Because in hospital, they wear those hospital garbs. Those who are in cancer, they have needles, right? And it can be very cold. And you don't have anything to cover them. So she knits these things that you can just wear over. And so even when the needles are here, you can still keep warm. So she does this for them. People in hospital or people who are older. And she started this a few years ago. Now she can knit one of this in one night. She started with June. She never know how to knit. One night she could do this. I think 1 year I can't do this. So she produced, she literally, so she's given us 30 over bags of this to give to older ones in the Hilltop Aged Care. So she asked whether the young people could write a little encouraging note, just to drop it in, just to encourage people. So Tamara has put these together, handmade with love. Would you write a nice little note? You don't know who they are. They will probably never know who you are, but it will be nice. A note just to say, God loves you, we're thinking of you, and just to bring some cheer. You never know how that could go a long way. Could you do that? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So one, write, and we're going to stick it there or pop it in, and then I'll bring it to them during the week. Okay, and later on we'll do that. We have 30 bags. Okay, so if you need some, let me know. If you're the aged care you work with, you can encourage anyone. We're just happy to do that. So that's what we'd like to see in this youth retreat. I'm already thinking of the next youth retreat, what we will have. The theme will be, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12. That's the next part. Tomorrow we will end with chapter 8. Well, I can't cover the whole book, of course. It's 3 days. I'm already going as fast as I can, just highlighting truths. But that's going to be it. The world wants you to conform to their image. Do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewal. That's our next youth retreat. But from now to then, would like to use this time to learn how to strengthen your faith, develop your faith, help me, and then at the same time, let's do good works. Let's do things that could touch other people's heart. As individual, as together. That's what the youth worship will be all about. Starting when we, after school start and all that. That's what we'll be looking at. Okay? Whether it's encouraging young people, or whether it's encouraging older people, anyone that God will send along our way. But first, we've got to have the heart. If we have the right heart, God will open doors for us. But if we don't have the heart, door won't be open. Okay? Let's do that. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Right? Okay, well, I'll leave these books here for you, and then have a wonderful time to go and enjoy the activities. Just tomorrow we will have the usual, right, morning, and then after morning tea kind of a thing. So tomorrow morning, the morning tea will be a special one. We're going to have waffles and ice cream. So it's not fruit, so fruit waffles. Okay, so enjoy, because it's the last day. It's a little bit of a celebration. Okay, all right, enjoy your time. Enjoy the rest of the time.
If everyone just wants to grab, maybe there's like 15-ish of us, if we grab 2 each, and then just